The movie opens up with Seo walking down a road by her lonesome, moving back to her childhood home. Eventually, she's picked up by a family friend, Sung-ho. He drops her off at her family's old abandoned house and notes that it's still the best one in the village. Before she heads inside, Seo-yeon realizes that she lost her phone on the train. Sung-ho offers to let her use his for the day until she gets a new one, but she declines and tells him she'll find one inside. In the house, Seo goes scavenging through old boxes to find a landline that can call her cell phone. When she does, a woman answers it on the other side. The woman asks for a reward in return for Seo's phone. When Seo refuses, the woman hangs up and disconnects the phone. Later, in an attempt to find her phone, Seo goes to a Find My Device app on the computer. In the midst of her search, the old phone of the house rings, with another woman panicking on the other end of the line. The person is in search of Sun-hee. Seo puts it off as a wrong number, and the person hangs up. We cut to a few days earlier. Seo's mom has a brain tumor that required immediate surgery. With Seo only working at a convenience store, the money for the operation is simply too much for her to pay off, and the two get into an argument about burying her mother next to her father. Seo claims that she doesn't have the right to be buried next to him. After Seo goes to visit her father's grave, she comes home to the phone ringing again. It's the girl looking for Sun-hee again. She says that her mother's trying to kill her and doesn't believe Seo's telling the truth about who she is and hangs up, frustrated. Later that night, Seo's woken up by a loud bang. She fears that someone has broken into the house, but as it turns out, one of her family portraits simply fell off the wall. When Seo tries to hammer another nail into the wall, the nail goes entirely through. As she knocks on the wall, for the first time in her life, she realizes the wall is actually hollow. Seo begins to knock it down and finds a set of stairs hidden behind it. The stairs lead down to a dark basement with a chair and a teddy bear in the middle. In the corner, she finds a box with a journal in it. In the journal, there are writings about ways to propel demons and ghosts with fire, along with a number of photos. One photo of a girl slides out, and Seo takes it upon herself to discover the identity of the girl. The next day, she approaches Sung-ho about the picture and the secret room. He tells her that the woman is Young-sook, a woman that he used to know. Seo asks him if she was a shaman, but Sung-ho corrects her, revealing it was actually Young-sook's mother that was a shaman. Cinema recap here. We've got a little challenge that'll take 5 seconds, and it will change your life forever. You ready? All you gotta do is like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and you'll receive 10 free years of good luck. It's as simple as that. However, Sung-ho is pretty dismissive about the rest of the questions. He knew the girl back in the 90s and claims that it's been a really long time, so he doesn't recall much. On the way home, Seo passes a store called Sun-hee's, the place that the woman who keeps calling is trying to reach. Later, Seo is standing at the top of the stairs, contemplating what she wants to do about it when suddenly the phone rings. It's the girl again, this time frantically asking for help. Her mother wants to set her on fire, and she's begging for Sun-hee's help. The girl is dragged away from the phone, and Seo hangs up. Elsewhere, in a different time, the girl is fighting for her life in the basement of Seo's house. Trying to escape, she runs up the stairs and, in the struggle, sets the stairs on fire. Simultaneously, the stairs in Seo's present-day house begins to smoke. Embers of the past tragedy manifest themselves in Seo's house before disappearing. The next day, Young-sook calls again. This time, it's before her death. Seo tries to tell Young-sook about the strange connection they have across time, but Young-sook shakes it off as a wrong number. Before hanging up, Seo tells her about a plane crash that will occur that day in an effort to convince her that she's telling the truth. That night, Young-sook closely watches the TV for news about the crash. Across her adopted mother urges her to eat the food and threatens to send her back to the mental hospital. In an act of rebellion, Young-sook grotesquely devours the food to upset her. In the midst of their dinner, the news of the plane crash comes on TV, confirming Seo's claims. Later, Young-sook calls Seo and confronts her about the strange situation they found themselves in. The two at this time are the same age and spend the night talking and catching each other up about the wonders of technology. Young-sook's parents died when she was young, similar to how Seo's dad died. Her mom left the gas on and it killed her father while also severely burning her leg. Because of this, Seo holds a lot of resentment towards her mom and doesn't want to bury her next to her father. Eventually, Young-sook's mom comes, and she has to hang up. Some time passes. and it's now November 21st. Young-sook's mom does a variety of things to ward off spirits, and a younger Seo and her family come to the house to tour it. As a child, Seo meets Young-sook, unaware that one day she'll be talking to her through some strange time-traveling phone. Young-sook immediately calls up Seo and allows her to listen in on her family's conversation. For the first time since her father's death, Seo's able to hear his voice again. This sparks an idea that Young-sook can somehow save Seo's dad and bring him back to life. It's November 27th, 1999, the same day that Seo's dad is supposed to die. Young-sook sneaks out of the house and rushes over to Seo's current house at the time, while the current Seo patiently waits for her to call back with news. Young-sook gets to the house just before the fire gets too bad. In the modern day, Seo's scar fades, and everything around her begins to change rapidly. Her cell phone finds its way back into her pocket. Her clothes change. The house gets a different set of furniture. Saving Seo's father changed everything. When Seo goes out to the garden to marvel at the new, better, unkept house, she finds her mother and father working in the garden. Overwhelmed by the whole thing, Seo embraces her father with tears in her eyes. Later on the phone, Seo endearingly thanks Young-sook for bringing her father back to her at the cost of a fairly severe punishment from her mother. At dinner, Seo enjoys the company of her parents and their now happily married life, still in shock by the whole thing. Her and Young-sook continue to communicate through the phone. Seo continues to give her insight about the modern world, and Young-sook leaves time capsules for Seo to find. As Seo's life gets better and better, she slowly puts Young-sook on the back burner. Shorter calls, missed calls, etc. With Seo being the last connection to the outside world for Young-sook, her mental stability begins to rapidly deteriorate. One day, after another missed call from Young-sook, Young-sook snaps on Seo, and her mom comes in to take her away. She warns Seo that if she continues to call Young-sook, she may end up getting hurt. She hangs up the phone and takes Young-sook to the basement. In the basement, the mother performs a number of rituals and despellings on her. It causes Young-sook a lot of anguish, and her body begins to convulse from the whippings. In the modern day, Seo tries to do more research on Young-sook. She searches all forms of social media in search of any clues that could lead her back to Young-sook. She finds out that her mother actually murders Young-sook in an exorcism due to her belief that mental illness could be cured through rituals. That night, when Young-sook calls, Seo warns her about the dark future ahead of her. She tells her that her mother intends to kill her that night. With Seo's warning, Young-sook's able to avoid being killed in bed, and she comes to blows with her mother. Instead of Young-sook being killed, she instead kills her mother, awaking something very dark and sinister inside her. When she calls Seo, Young-sook reveals that she feels reborn and goes off into the world, unhindered by her mother's strange rules. With Young-sook alive, even Sung-ho appears more chipper. One day in the past, he visits Young-sook to drop off strawberries. Confused by Young-sook's drastically different personality, he initially plays along and allows her to have her fun with the different clothes. But when he goes to put the strawberries away in the fridge, he discovers human remains stuffed in garbage bags. Unfortunately for him, Young-sook discovers him before he can run. He tries to call for help on the phone, but it only leads to Seo, who's currently having dinner with Sung-ho. When Seo answers the phone, she overhears Young-sook killing Sung-ho, and much to her confusion, the Sung-ho in her time disappears without a trace. When Seo goes to the police station to inquire about Sung-ho's disappearance, she discovers that he died a long time ago. Him and many others that Young-sook killed. When the police initially begin their investigation on the disappearance of Sung-ho, they meet Young-sook at her house. Despite her having a large box of strawberries and fairly convoluted story, she keeps her poker face and tells them that she doesn't know who Sung-ho is. In the present day, Seo begins to ask around about who exactly Young-sook was. As it turns out, Young-sook once assaulted the nice lady from the Sun-hee convenience shop. If it were not for her mom, Young-sook would have killed her. This whole time, we thought her mother was the monster, but in reality, she was keeping the monster at bay. The next time Seo and Young-sook talk on the phone, Seo confronts her about the death of Sung-ho. Despite killing two people, Young-sook remains nonchalant about the situation. The unsettling news makes Seo cry. The future has changed, and Young-sook was eventually caught and sent to prison for life. When Young-sook tries to get the information out of Seo, Seo hangs up. Infuriated that Seo won't help her get away with the murders, she cusses her out over the phone. She tries to remind her that it was her that saved Seo's family, but due to the guilt of indirectly killing Sung-ho, Seo remains silent. Seo disconnects her phone and allows things to play out for Young-sook without the aid of her future knowledge. One day, a younger Seo and her father visit the house looking for Young-sook's mother. She invites them inside. At the same time, Seo's learning to drive in her present life. Young-sook murders Seo's father in front of her, and in the middle of the drive, Seo's life falls apart. Her father disappears and the nice house has become an abandoned, worn-down building. Young-sook tells the young Seo to answer the phone, carving it into the very floor of the house. When the two talk on the phone again, Young-sook blackmails Seo into helping her hide the evidence. She will kill Seo's younger self if she does not comply. Seo's absolutely pissed and begins her research. With all the information that she's gathered, Seo seemingly tells Young-sook about the key evidence that was found against her, but instead sets up Young-sook to be involved in a gas explosion accident somewhere else. Unfortunately for Seo, Young-sook is outside of the greenhouse when it explodes. In the present day, Seo receives a phone call from her younger self. The explosion didn't kill Young-sook, and now she plans to torture Seo's younger self. She starts with pouring boiling water on her, causing Seo to writhe in pain both in the past and in the future. In the midst of her psychological torture, she also reveals that it wasn't Seo's mother that left the gas on which led to the fire that killed her dad. It was Seo herself. She just blamed her mother. In order to get Seo to continue obeying her, Young-sook targets her mother next. Seo has no choice but to break into the police station and find the evidence that Young-sook caught. As Young-sook changes her future, the writings in the police journal also change. Now, in place of the knife evidence, is a missing persons report for Seo herself. The house changes, and now, instead of being run down and abandoned, the house holds a large number of fridges with bodies in each one. Young-sook is still around and killing more regularly. In the midst of escaping the house, Seo notices a note in the police journal. During the search for Seo, her mother used the phone in the house to call Seo's father, meaning she has an opportunity to warn them. She can't run. She must go inside and find the phone. In the past, a police officer and Seo's mother go to the house looking for Seo. While present-day Seo searches for the new murder house, she narrowly avoids Young-sook and finds the phone in the basement. When the phone call finally comes, Seo quickly tries to warn her mother but is interrupted when the modern-day Young-sook hits her over the head. In the past, Young-sook kills the police officer, splattering blood across Seo's mother's face. Seo gets into a physical altercation with Young-sook and cuts the bottom of her foot in the process. She runs away and finds herself locked in a room with the phone. Her mother calls, and just like Seo, she's also trapped in the room and unable to call for help. Seo tries to warn her and talk her through it, but Young-sook stabs her in the back and the two get into a fight that nearly ends badly for Seo. It's only by the efforts of her mother that Young-sook is pushed off a balcony and killed. In the present day, Seo is saved from being killed and immediately runs to her mother's hospital room to find out if she's alive or not. While she's not at the hospital, she's at her father's grave. This time, she has many scars from the fight with Young-sook. Seo believes that they're finally free, and the two walk away happily. Unfortunately, life is not that kind. As it turns out, the future Young-sook has been giving her past self advice about the many situations that she finds herself in. With the combined effort of the two of them, they yet again change the future. They kill Seo's mom and take Seo hostage once again. The 2020 movie The Call was produced by Sid Lim, with lead actors Park Shin-hye and Jeon Jeon-seo. Given everything that happened, what would you have done differently if you were in Seo's position? Let us know in the comments with the hashtag CinemaRecap.